Hi, everyone on the internet. I'm here. I'm present. It is Wednesday, December 31st, 2025. This is going to be my last video of 2025, and I'm extremely excited about that because we're letting go of a lot. I think we're letting go of 18-year cycles, 9-year cycles, and even longer cycles. And Venus ruling my chart, I've been working on relationship patterns and complexes that we develop in childhood that create these layers and illusions around how we interact with people in relationships. And I feel like, every astrological rising sign has its kind of mission right now and what it's working on within itself that relieves pressure within the collective. And so I'm going to share this. My dream is that everyone on the internet, for like a whole day, I mean, forever would be better, but just puts out information on the work that they're doing on themselves. No projections, within society, on other people, really just the work, the core work that they're doing on themselves. And just imagine uh, like the massive awakening that would occur because it's really easy to observe and to project onto the people around us, onto society. And the crux of the work is looking at the self. And it is the most difficult because we are in our bodies, in our being, looking outwards and often just in a mode of reception, receiving information from all of these broadcasting systems, from the people around us. And it's really hard to turn that view inwards and to do the work internally and to also speak on it from that position. And going into 2026, there's going to be a lot of movement and a lot of healing within the collective as people continue to do this work. We've all been doing it to a certain degree, but it's really, really difficult to do shadow work. We talk about shadow work all the time, but the process, sometimes it's easy. You can get really triggered. You look at something, it's not really a complex, it's not really like a deep, deep shadow. Um, it's easier to see it and then kind of own it, whether it's the golden shadow, right? All the good things that we hide from ourselves, or the negative aspects. But oftentimes it's really this bigger work that sometimes takes a lifetime to move through, to see the conditioning, to see the childhood patterns, and to see how they're playing out in our lives. And yeah, this is huge work. And this ties into the whole concept of Watiko. And in order to heal the world, we have to heal ourselves. And you just get so freaking tired of like talking about that work. But it's nuanced and the internal shadow work is really how we do change the world. So the universe just brings us, back again and again to that internal work, no matter how much we try and project it onto the outside world and onto other people. And so, one of the big shadows that I've had to deal with that has taken me really a lifetime to first be able to pinpoint, and see, and then start breaking down, dissecting, and understanding what it's connected to in my own behavior and how that can be projected out or how I can self-justify. Because the thing with shadow work is because it's in the unconscious and it's this unconscious behavior, the mind does everything it possibly can to self-justify its own behavior. That's why shadow work is difficult. We have to observe the mind, right? We can't just be in reaction mode. When we're in reaction mode, the unconscious is controlling. When we start observing our own mind, then we can start seeing the patterns. And then we can start seeing how the mind will justify itself as we work through those patterns. And that's when there's an opening that's created for us to truly begin to change those patterns. Seeing them is one aspect, and then the integration and changing those encrusted patterns slowly takes time because they're really part of our um, like the path of least resistance, right? Our neurological hardwiring. Any sort of programming that we received in childhood or conditioning that we received in childhood is so deeply embedded that it truly does take a lot of work to re-hardwire the psychology of the person, your own psychology, to re-hardwire our own brains. And so I'm going to speak on the Savior complex. We have Neptune going into Aries, and this is going to really bring this to the surface. I've been doing this work, as I said, throughout my whole lifetime, and it's morphed into different stages as I continue to chip away at what the core of it was. But at the core, it is a Savior complex that I've overcome. It can also be called the White Knight syndrome. It's also called the Messiah complex. And it's a psychological pattern where someone feels a compulsive need to rescue or fix others, often neglecting their own needs, deriving self-worth from being the helper, and potentially enabling those they help. Okay. Um, and it is a formal diagnosis. It isn't a formal diagnosis, but it's described as excessive self-sacrifice, a sense of mission to save people, and an inability to accept refusal of help, leading often to burnout and unhealthy relationships rooted in childhood experiences. So I'm just going to press pause for a second. So how this started coming up for me, and I'm sharing this information for people that might have a savior complex and are slowly chipping away at it and beginning to see what it is and how it's playing out in their lives. Um, we do need to do the internal work. Like basically everything boils down to the internal work. People can tell us things, but it's going to click when it's going to click, right? It boils down to timing and the right timing. So maybe this will reach people at the right time. Um, it started off just by I just noticed the pattern of um, notice the pattern of entering relationships based on the need to help them or fix them. Um, at first, it was just subconscious, unconscious, and over years and years, I was like, hey, there's a pattern here. And and I found a lot of validation in that, in that dynamic, right? Because you're helping someone and that feels good. Um, and it's not bad to help people, but it has to come from the right place. And you don't want it coming from um, a transactional sense where you're doing this in order to feel loved and validated. And so I just began noticing the pattern. Um, oh, this is a pattern within my relationships. And at one point, I had a relationship where that became very, very apparent. The pain that it could cause another person when you enter a relationship through the lens of the savior complex, you're not actually entering the relationship authentically. You can't actually, you're not being drawn to that person because there's an authentic connection between both people and you're both resonating and inspiring each other on that same level. It's you're entering a relationship because you feel that you can help or fix that person and then receive the love and recognition in exchange. And sometimes people do want help, but it's not always that they want help. And so those are the bigger tower moments that someone with a savior complex can experience when they enter a relationship, doing what they normally do, going in to help and fix the person, and that person doesn't want help at all. And so there's a push and a pull dynamic that occurs, and you don't get the love and the recognition and the validation, from your offering, and that person feels slighted and they feel deceived. And so those types of relationships can really bring someone to an awakening with what this is. The relationships where you're kind of like trauma bonding based on your complexes, those ones are more enabling. You're doing what you do based off your savior complex, and the other person is doing what they do based off of another complex, whether it's the rescuer, the damsel in distress, or even the perpetrator, right? Because that's the triangulation, the savior, victim, perpetrator, and it just goes round and round. And they usually are not long lasting. It's very difficult unless people really stay rooted in their complexes, then the relationship could last because they're both fulfilling each other based on those complexes. But as soon as someone begins to heal, the way that they view the relationship changes because they begin to truly see the person, all these veils of illusion that they've put on them, these masks that they've had on begin to fall, and they see the person for who they truly are. And then they realize that the relationship was just based on that transactional exchange of I'm going to help you and you're going to give me validation in return. And so the dynamic isn't healthy. And everybody has different complexes, different things that they're looking for through the relationships. And this is the shadow work that we do to discover what kind of conditioning, what kind of complexes we have, so that we can begin to approach relationships from a really healthy and authentic position from within ourselves, owning our own shadows, owning our own complexes, and working on them. And so as that developed, um, and I had different relationships which were huge pivotal moments where I came to see the patterning. I then began to enter relationships with that information, and I would consciously speak about it. Um, and these complexes become such a big part of your identity that they could be part of your spiritual identity. And the universe is always speaking and reflecting back that which is within you, right? You are the cosmos is within you. And so if you have this conditioning, whatever conditioning it is, or whatever complex, the universe is going to be reinforcing that by reflecting back that which you desire. And so coming into relationships, I'd always encounter people, whether it be friendships or intimate relationships, where the person would be going through a huge moment of loss, huge tower moment. They'd be in a position where they needed help. Um, and it was like a pivotal moment in their lives. And I would just enter the scene at that moment because I was in resonance with that complex and with being able to assist people. And that became part of my spiritual identity because as I was going through these different stages of shadow work, I began to question, well, why am I always entering people's lives when they're going through like a Kundalini awakening and, projections are flying everywhere, or they're in loss and they're in despair. They're going through a tower moment. And that kind of reinforced this belief. And the mind looks for things to justify itself in its patterning, in its conditioning. So it would use all of that information to justify, well, this is part of my purpose. This is part of my templating. This is part of my spiritual identity, what I'm here, what I'm meant to do. Or else, why would I meet people at these pivotal moments? And so it stayed, I kind of would self-justify for like years because the universe kept on reinforcing that. And that made it difficult to really start to own the shadow. And when I began to talk about it more and more, eventually entering relationships and saying, hey, listen, this is my pattern, like consciously relating with people and saying, this is my pattern. I'm not sure what this is. I feel like it's part of my identity, like it's part of my spiritual identity, but I also feel like it could be part of my shadow. And then working through the relationship based on that level of information, a level of conscious exchange, um, gave me the openings and the opportunities to truly do the work of owning that shadow and then releasing myself from it, which uncovers love. It uncovers authenticity because the opposite of love is fear, but it's also control. And anybody within society who's dealing with individuals and has the savior complex, or dealing with the collective and has the messiah complex, is ultimately trying to fix them through control, trying to save them through control. And that's very difficult to own because the parts that we don't want to own within the self are being reinforced by that behavior. And so it's very difficult to begin to realize that all of that energy that you're putting towards saving other people or saving people in the collective is truly about self-negation and not wanting to save those aspects of self, to take responsibility for those aspects of self. Um, and that's the crux of the Watiko, right? Is we project outwards this savior complex. And so we never do the internal work to actually change society from the base, from the roots, from the foundation up. And it's quite the challenge because people are comfortable in their complexes, and it's actually easier to assist other people than it is to begin to assist the self, to take ownership of the self and do the work for the self. And I would see that, and I'd go through these phases where I'd just be completely exhausted. But the level of energy that I had to put towards other people was incredible. Like complete devotional energy towards fixing their lives and assisting them in their lives. And when it would come time where I'd go inwards and I'd move out of a relationship, I spent quite a bit of time alone and not in relationships. And this has really helped me to see this shadow, begin to own it and integrate it. I would then turn that lens onto self, and the energy level that I would have towards helping and assisting myself would not be the same. It would be much more difficult to do the work on the self than it would be to just go out and assist other people in their process. And so that's where I began to see how it reinforces itself, because doing the work on the self is the most difficult work we could do, right? That's why the society is in the state that it's in, because it's way easier to project everything out onto like whatever we see happening in the collective, all the wrongs happening in society, than it is to actually sit with ourselves, do the shadow work, which takes quite a bit of time and, self-honesty and radical authenticity with the self, to then see the self, to then begin to set up a plan to integrate that shadow, and then to reinforce the behaviors where the change is taking place, and um, pushing through with that plan to begin to like truly assist the self and not negate the self and take full responsibility for the self. And so as I've been moving through this throughout my lifetime, um, I'm also seeing that, within society, this is like a much bigger collective thing. And where people have the Messiah complex, it's not so much in their one-to-one relationships. It's, with the one-way broadcasting system, focusing and projecting all that out onto groups, onto the collective, and feeling that they have a mission to save the collective. Now, again, it's not wrong to want to change things in society. That impulse is correct, but it always starts with the self. It always starts with our own relationship to self and the behaviors that we allow and reinforce within ourselves, and the shadow work. And it's big. It's really big. And so I feel like 2025, I'm releasing this video today. I've been wanting to release it for like quite a few months, but it's the last day, and I'm not taking the Savior complex with me into 2026. I'm leaving it behind. And what I'm taking with me is this healthier relationship with self that hopefully, by sharing this, other people that are doing the work can resonate and know that, we're all moving towards this healing, but the healing is happening within the self. With Neptune going into Aries, we might encounter, that's happening, when is it? I think it's February. Is it February 14th? We're going to encounter this, like we're going to see the Messiah complex sprout out, because Neptune, this extremely spiritual energy entering the sign of the warrior, there could be some radical, extreme people coming out, with the Messiah complex, and just really projecting and self-sacrificing completely towards a movement within the collective, all in negation of doing that work within the self. And um, ultimately, they'll be led back to themselves. But I feel like this energy is being healed. People are no longer able to look out into the world and project as much as we used to, because everybody is awakening and becoming more conscious and becoming more aware. And so more and more people are doing the internal work. And as that happens, that's truly, like I said, what heals society. Um, yeah, it's big, and it's beautiful. And by owning the Savior complex, all of my relationships have reconfigured. Um, and I've been active in sharing with people, you know, what that is, what kind of, complexes, way of interacting that I'm working through. And not everybody has done that work. And so that's where, um, you know, we're going to resonate with people who are doing conscious work on themselves, who are doing shadow work on themselves. And it's going to be more and more difficult to resonate with people who haven't done that work. But everyone's doing different things at different times, based on what they're here to learn. And so it's always about moving towards what is calling you on that soul level, right? Continuing to do the work, because some of it is illusion, but moving towards what you want to see more of, and not staying back and fighting what it is that you don't want to see, right? Because that's just a waste of energy. And I'll keep on reinforcing that message, because in order to gather with people who are on the same frequency as you, who, who you can relate to authentically, you have to move towards that which feels good. Um, that not just feel good as in like a superficial feel good and don't want to do the work, but based on, what you're seeing mirrored back to you and the indicators showing that, okay, these people are doing similar work to myself. And that allows, solutions to be created, like projects to be birthed in this new cycle. We're birthing a new paradigm. And if we keep on fighting and pushing against what we don't want to see, it limits the time and the energy that we can put towards creating what we do want to see. Um, and everyone's doing different things at different times. Everyone has their own purpose within all of this. So it's really about you going inwards and doing the work on yourself to determine how you can authentically relate to others, right? And release the control. Because the control won't allow other people to actually change, right? It's exactly what we've been fighting in society. Everybody wants freedom. Nobody wants a totalitarian um, movement to limit our being in this world, in this realm. And so just that reflection alone allows us to see, yeah, um, I can't desire that on one hand and to be that in the world and yet do that to other people, right? So it's all these layers of shadow work that we're working through. Um, but I'm really excited about 2026. I really wanted to just release this video because I feel like it's cathartic for myself, my own personal work. Um, and I'm leaving that behind. It's no longer a part of me. So everything has changed just based off of that. And, the more work everybody does, it's like just radical transformations all around. So I'm wishing everybody a really healthy, happy, abundant, creative 2026. And I'm wishing them all the things that support and nourish them to do the internal work and to move forwards in um, a strong direction, a fresh direction towards creating solutions, towards being creative and having fun with that. Like I have everything going into my fifth house, so I'm going to have fun. Like I know this is going to be a really fun cycle. Uh, it's always a lot of work, right? But it depends how you orient yourself and, what kind of internal work you've done. It can alleviate some pressure. Um, and so I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. And this is, like I said, very cathartic just to get this out, to speak on it and have the listeners tune in and just be present, be a witness to this process. And it would be incredible if everybody on the one-way broadcast system were to just speak on themselves, right? Because the amount of propaganda, the amount of projection, I mean, it's just incredible what's out there. And once we start removing that by doing the internal work, we can really become present and see things clearly. Um, so I hope we see more of that. And I think we will. Just this morning, I was seeing people speak on topics that I've been speaking on actually for 10 years now. Going through different phases, identifying the Messiah complex in other people. And then that's the first projection when we can identify it in other people, but then begin to see it in ourselves and work through all those layers. Um, so yeah, there's going to be more, and there's going to be next level and next layer. There's always another layer to it. Um, but I'm very grateful to be here and alive on this planet and partaking in this great transformation that's happening. All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.